Chapter 1 Esyan's 10 years reign as the Black Panther was anticlimactic for one reason: he was unable to capture the man who assassinated his brother, the former Black Panther T'Chaka. Wakandans were generally satisfied that Esyan shored up the defences of the country to the point he was given the nickname Esyan the Wall. But each year that the assassin remained free, the question was asked: how can a man hide from the most scientifically advanced nation on earth for all these years? There was speculation that Esyan secretly coveted the Black Panther mantle before his brother's demise, and he probably assisted the assassin. To his credit, Esyan searched extensively. He even went to Belgium, which was the country that the assassin came from. Esyan even learnt the political language, code words, dog whistles, and legalese of the rulers of the planet because he believed that they hid the assassin and financed him. Then Esyan lost the Black Panther mantle to his nephew T'Challa in the annual Challenge Day ceremony, and with that he also lost the opportunity to personally avenge his brother. T'Challa never outright called Esyan incompetent in the manhunt, but little comments alluded to it in Esyan's mind. It also compounded his frustration in losing the mantle so abruptly. After a few months, Esyan finally made peace that T'Challa was in charge of the manhunt now, and he resigned himself to the Wakanda parliament, documenting the local code words and legalese that were similar in spirit to the ones used in international law to camouflage certain agendas. Eventually the assassin returned to Wakanda and T'Challa defeated him, thus Esyan believed that chapter in his life was closed. One night Esyan was roused from his sleep by a holographic communication from T'Challa. The screen showed an article from the Belgium newspaper of record Het Last Saint News, which was titled The Wakanda Protocols Part 1. The opening paragraphs were, Ulysses Claude should be a national hero of Belgium. Flanders and Walloons should be proud of that son of the soil who carried in his heart the fire of Belgium independence from the Netherlands, Germany, and France. His wish was to put Belgium as a major supernation and not just a NATO missile launch site. His father was a patriot who fought against the German occupancy of the country in World War II when our then king had capitulated. Therefore it is no surprise that Ulysses would risk his life for Belgium in the harsh and dark jungles of Africa. With the aid of the humanitarian Aber Congo Company, Claude went to Africa on an expedition to find the legendary vibranium metal. What he found were a close-minded and superstitious group of locals who refused his humanitarian aid and free trade of the vibranium. As he was met with such hostility, Claude had to use creative diplomacy, which ended violently for him and his crew. Yes, some locals lost their lives, but under the legal international law called fog of war, such actions by Claude were excusable. Then for 10 years the Wakandans, the name the locals call themselves, hunted Claude across the globe. This scientist, Claude gained his PhDs at Oxford University, was sent into hiding. The Belgium national security apparatus was unable to stop the Wakandans from ploughing through our country in search of him, as documents revealed to this reporter attest to. But miraculously Claude survived for 10 years, but it caused him to have a mental breakdown. Sadly, in his unstable mental state after being harassed for so long, he went back to Wakanda and is now presumed dead, having been killed by the undemocratic monarchy-led regime in that country. This is part 1 of a 6-part series on the cunning employed by Ulysses Claude to outwit the Wakandans for a decade. The reporter was given access to military documents, political memos, and hidden economy informants in Belgium and abroad in this real-life adventure. More importantly, Claude's personal journal was passed to the reporter in the event he did not return from his last attempt to reason with the Wakandans for the vibranium that they selfishly deny the world of. Part 2 of the series will deal with the Wakandan security codes and shady dealings that were used in the manhunt. The rest of the article delved into the nature and importance of vibranium based on Claude's journal. "Are you going to visit the reporter?" asked Esyan. "Yes, and you are coming along," replied T'Challa. Chapter 2 Belgium Ambiorix was the meta-human who recently gained national attention as a crime fighter in Belgium, and T'Challa suspected that he would try to protect the reporter from a Wakandan backlash. "You will speak to the reporter while I will deal with Ambiorix," said T'Challa. "Yes, my king," said Esyan. Esyan felt awkward, but it reminded him of his father Azari the Wise's instruction that no man should become attached to titles because they can suddenly disappear. As for Esyan's view of his nephew, he found that T'Challa was nothing like T'Chaka. There was a joy in T'Chaka that radiated out his fierce body, whereas T'Challa was detached and calculated in his mannerisms. Esyan assumed that it was due to T'Challa witnessing Claw's assassination of T'Chaka. Sometimes Esyan reflected on what he could have done differently that fateful day when Claw entered their lives. It was probably the reason he intensified the country's isolation policy and reconfigured the defensive grid during his kingship. As for his sister-in-law Ramonda, the measures were not enough. She wanted vengeance, and Esyan felt she lost her confidence in him. She ruled Wakanda until the next challenge day, which Esyan won, and he immediately continued in the same vigor as she had in the pursuit of Claw, but sometimes he saw in her eyes that she regretted not entering the ceremony to officially become the Black Panther. That feeling of disappointment was on Esyan's shoulders when he went to the reporter in Antwerp. He was disappointed that someone had villainized his nation when they gone through so much mental anguish for 10 years. The reporter was a friend of Claw's sister Julia, which was the reason the journal ended up in the reporter's possession. The reporter had no public political leanings other than being patriotic. Information on her history was sparse, other than she attended journalism school and was a part of the newspaper's investigative team. A search for her cell phone showed that it was in the newspaper building, so the Wakandans went there to get the Ulysses journal. Esyan did not view the journal as vindication, he saw it as a security risk that needed to be neutralized. Chapter 3 The reporter turned out to be more clever than expected, because when Esyan applied a sleeping gas to the building's ventilation system, the reporter took out a gas mask from her briefcase, and then she remained at her desk while her editor and cleaners call aspied in the halls. It was 11:30 p.m. and she was working late on the Wakanda Protocol series, as the hacked surveillance footage had shown the Wakandans. As per T'Challa's intuition, the Belgium crime figure was in the vicinity of the building, and the Black Panther engaged him to give Esyan a window of opportunity to get the journal. Esyan entered the newsroom and walked up to the reporter's desk. She sat patiently with a pen and a pad. Her eyes looked intently on Esyan as he came up to her. Then he pressed a button on his kimoyo that killed the power in the building. Darkness engulfed the newsroom, and the reporter started to breathe heavily through her gas mask. Meanwhile, Esyan's multi-function goggles viewed the world in terms of infrared, three-dimensional, and X-ray visions. "I already scanned the pages of the journal," said the reporter in Dutch. "It does not matter," said Esyan in Dutch. "The story will still print." "It does not matter." The sounds of a large battle on the streets outside of the building caused a brief pause between the reporter and Esyan. "Are you NATO?" asked the reporter. "Yes." "Liar, you are the Wakandans." "Based on what evidence?" She stammered, so Esyan knew she had taken the bait. "I can easily put a bullet in your forehead right now, and it will be blamed on the Wakandans, which is the real reason your editor was told to run your story about a mysterious country that hardly anyone knows of," he said. "Hey! NATO is involved in every aspect of your country to the point you don't understand that you are a tool for a larger agenda. You were chosen to receive the journal because others could hide behind your political views. I am here to save your life." "You have lost me," said the reporter. "Also, please put back on the lights." Esyan opened his palm to create a hologram of Claw's father. This man was a double agent for Germany. He became aware of vibranium when German scientists fled to Belgium and took refuge on his estate. They told him about their failed attempts to get vibranium, which existence they stumbled upon from ancient texts. He then passed on the info to his son Ulysses, who wanted the metal for personal fortune. He hated Belgium much like his father, as they were descendants of the barons that did not want independence from the Netherlands. Your hit piece on Wakanda is only to make the international community avert its eyes away from the military campaign that will be started against Wakanda shortly. As we speak, your article is being cited in national security councils to create consultancy companies that will funnel monies to mercenaries and defense contractors. These people will then kill you to make a matter for their objectives. It is a tried and true tactic, said Yan. Fire truck and police sirens blared outside in the streets as the sound of a fierce battle intensified. What is happening out there? Asked the reporter. A controlled distraction, replied Yan, and he continued, this is the evidence for all that I have said. The hologram turned to correspondence letters from Chloe's father to his section chiefs in Berlin during World War II. These could be forgeries, said the reporter. Yan turned the lights back on in the office and he handed a bundle of the correspondence to the reporter. You were working for fascists. You can verify the documents for yourself, said Yan. He turned and walked out of the newsroom. Moments later he was on the roof, having used his peak human speed. He climbed into the cloaked jet and then flew it over the battle between T'Challa and the crime fighter. The Black Panther was moving at half pace, but when he sensed the jet with his hypersenses, he stepped up a gear as allowed by his consumption of the heart-shaped herb, which took him beyond peak human. T'Challa the Black Panther ended the fight with a decisive blow, and when the police opened fire on him, the king moved faster than the bullets. He leapt from the street into the jet, and Yan said, I got the journal. Great, said T'Challa. Yan took out his Kimoyo and synced it with T'Challa's as the jet flew out of Belgium airspace. Yan's Kimoyo had linked to the multifunctioned Googles, then scanned through the journal that was in the reporter's briefcase and lifted the texts from the book. Do you believe the reporter will kill the story? Asked T'Challa. Yes, because I gave her a juicier one and a crisis of conscience, replied Yan.